Hi everyone. Today we are here with Dr. Anjana Sridharan, a specialist pediatric surgery, Medcare. Hi, Dr. Anjana. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
Great. So, coming to my first question, could you tell us a little bit about your journey into pediatric surgery and what ultimately led you to join Medcare in UAE?
So my journey in pediatric surgery, well, it basically started when I was doing my MBBS. So when I was a kid, I wanted to be a pediatrician actually. But during training, I realized I have more of a surgical mind than a medical mind. It was easier for me. My skills were better with my hands. So that's what prompted me to take up surgery, which was kind of like a little bit still frowned upon for women to take. I mean, in today's day and age, yeah, a lot more people are taking up. I took up general surgery, and then once I took up general surgery, we are sent through rotations, like neurosurgery and cardiovascular, pediatrics, out of which I found pediatric surgery to be the best. Mainly because the children, they might be vulnerable, but they have a level of resilience that surpasses everyone else that I've seen. Like, they're very quick to respond to treatment. Like, they can come to you in a state of shock, and immediately post surgery, they will begin negotiating. They'll be like, I want food, I want a cricket ball, I want that. It's very fast. So their recovery rate and their strength that they have is incredible.
So, you trained in practice in India before relocating to UAE. What experiences or learnings from your time at institutions such as Safdarjung and Vardhman Mahavir Medical College have had the strongest impact on how you approach pediatric surgery here?
I think the best thing that Safdarjung has given me in terms of pediatric surgery is the volumes, because we were a tertiary care hospital, and we were the largest center in India. So we were the one place where all the children were sent to. We were the final referral center, and we had an overrefusal policy. So basically, however difficult the case was, we had to accept. So one thing is that, when you keep doing things over and over again, your hands start developing a skill. And we are in a resource constrained environment. Even if it is, the top hospitals, it has a little bit more of constraints in terms of resources. So you learn to think more in terms of clinical. Your clinical judgment improves. You know how to touch an abdomen and see and say whether it's, surgical or not surgical. So I feel that ability, that intuition that I have developed is mainly because I worked in Safdarjung. The other thing is that, you learn also how to think outside the box. You you don't say no very fast. You don't give up very fast. You try to create something even if you have nothing.
So, what do you consider the most challenging aspect when treating adult versus children, and how does your approach differ between these specialties?
There is a big difference in treating adults and children in two forms. One is when you're treating an adult, they are coherent enough, and they can understand their own condition, and they are more willing to take the risk. Whereas when you're treating a child, you're treating the family. You have to take them as a unit, because the child might not be aware, but it will be the mother and father who are suffering with the anxiety that is associated with the child undergoing surgery. So that is one thing. You have to learn how to handle the family. It's equally important. And the second thing is, even during surgery, I think we have to be a lot more gentler with handling the tissue of a child, because they're not exactly little adults. They're the tissue is different. It is more friable, as in, like, it can get damaged faster. So you have to be more delicate. You might have to go much more slower, and you have to be very careful, because things are just 1 millimeter apart. So you have to be very, very careful. And that, I think, is the main difference between, general surgery and
And
doing pediatric surgery.
most of the people, like I would say, general public and the audiences, have a misconception about difference between pediatrician and
Oh, yes.
pediatric
Pediatric.
surgery.
Yes, I think this is the commonest question that I would like to tell all my viewers, that I am not a pediatrician. I am a surgeon, a general surgeon who's worked in general surgery and who is now operating on children. Unlike my other pediatric specialists, like, a pediatric nephrologist or a pediatric gastroenterologist, they are all pediatricians who have done MD pediatrics or DMD pediatrics, and then proceeded to then specialize in their respective fields. Whereas I'm essentially a general surgeon. who's now practicing on children.
So you have faced such issue?
Plenty of times. I think almost every now and then, where after I finish the surgery, someone will come and ask me, can you also write the cream for the diaper rash? And I will like, no.
In your view, how important is collaboration with other specialists for successful outcomes? And could you share an example when multidisciplinary teamwork made a significant difference in particular cases?
Yes, I think in my case, particularly for any other pediatric surgeon, it's very, very important. Teamwork and collaboration is like the foundation. No man works alone. So when I get a difficult or a challenging case, it's usually important to alert all the stakeholders. So usually this involves anesthesia, the pediatric intensivist, the nursing team, the pre-operative staff, the OT staff, everyone, the surgical GPs, the pediatric GPs, and in case of neonates, obviously the neonatologist. So usually when we get a complex case, what we do is we all of us get together because each of our concerns are different. So what might be a concern for me might not be the concern for the pediatrician, or what is a concern for both of us will not be the anesthetist's concern. Okay, so what we do is we come together, we have a meeting, we decide what is the best protocol, we alert everyone else, and then we move forward. And I feel that has helped a lot in getting good patient outcomes in a hospital.
So, how do you communicate complex surgical risk benefits and post-operative care plans to parents and guardians, especially when dealing with neonatal or congenital anomalies? What strategies have you found effective to reassure and involve families?
I think my main strategy is to keep it simple. I try to explain it like I would explain it to a 6-year-old. And this has been my practice since Safdarjung. I usually do it either in the form of diagrams, or here because we have the computer access and the internet access, usually I take up pictures and I show them examples of what is actually going on with their child. Because if you just give them the report, most of the time they don't understand. They don't know what they're dealing with. So what I try to do is, with the help of pictures and simplified explanations, I first explain what is the condition that their child is having, what is the prognosis associated with it. Okay, what will happen if we do surgery and what will happen if we don't do surgery. Or even if it's an investigation, sometimes I have to send them outside for further investigations. So in that case, I specifically explain what I'm looking for so that they are clear as to why they are going and getting a particular investigation done. What I found is that when you explain it to them, they're more likely to follow through with the orders. Otherwise, if you just, write it and, as a tick box, okay, get ultrasound, get CT, get this, they'll be like, oh, I think doctor has ordered too many things. I'm not going to do it. But whereas if you sit and explain and you say that this is why I've asked for this investigation, I'm looking for this particular thing in the investigation. And also, I think it's very important for us to be honest. Sometimes there are, like, for example, CT has a risk of radiation. So if I really do need a CT, I tell the parent, I said, see, this is what we're going to gain from it. And these are the risks associated with it, so that they can make a very careful, informed decisions. Sometimes they would like to get a second opinion, which I think is perfectly fair. Sometimes they would want me to talk to a family member, or there is some doctor in the family or some relative. It might be the same thing that I said,
Right.
but if I can explain that to that family member and I can convey it to them, sometimes all they'll do is, yeah, the doctor is right. Just go ahead with what she says. But that they find it reassuring. So there are multiple strategies that I use. And usually after I explain all this, I always wait and I ask. I'm like, did you get my point? Do you have any other questions? Do you have any doubts? It might sound silly. It's okay. Ask it. And another peculiar thing I've noticed in my patients, in the parents that come, one is usually calm and one is very anxious. Okay, so the calm one is usually trying to be very cool and being like, oh, no, it's okay, it'll be fine. It's actually very important to focus on the anxious one, the one who's not asking questions, the one who looks terrified, the one who's in a state of shock.
And it usually happens.
Yes, that usually happens. I have seen this so many times where emergency surgeries or in neonatal surgeries where, it's very easy. And I've seen other people judge them like, what sort of a mother is she? She's not even asked a single question. I had this for one of the neonatal cases that I did. But for her, she had a preterm child, neonate, who was there in the NICU for so long. And she was just waiting to take the child home. And then we landed with, we found an inguinal hernia. And the dictum is you have to get it done immediately because it's a high risk in a newborn child. Now, within that first 1 month period, it's a very high risk. So the first time I met her, there was nothing. She just blankly stared at me. Then again, we had to take consent, and then I gave her the option. I said, listen, I'm in the clinic in the evening. If you want to come back and you want to talk to me, you have any doubts, you talk to me and only then sign the papers. I gave her the consent forms and I was like, me, then you sign the paper. And I found it helped because she signed the papers. Then she came down and sat in my office just to tell me that she's scared, which makes sense, right? For her, it makes perfect sense. So it's like for them, they're handing over their most precious thing in their life. They're handing it over to you. So it makes sense why they are anxious. It makes sense why they can't talk. So sometimes I feel, it is very important. It's very much a part of the treatment where you sit and talk to them, explain to them every step. Because to a lay person, if you say, oh, your child has hernia, the next question I normally get is, no, but doesn't that happen in adults? Like, my child is just born. Doesn't that just happen in adults? And so then for each patient, I have to go down to, no, this is what happens.
You
This is
like re-explain.
Yeah. So I usually use pictures and I was like, no, some children are born with it. There's another misconception that a lot of parents have is that they did something in their pregnancy wrong and it's their mistake that their child is born with a problem. So this is also a common question I get from patients where they're like, could we have done something different? Is it because I walked too much? Is it because I did something? I ate something? And a lot of the congenital anomalies have nothing to do with it. Yes, there are some, but most of them that I treat have nothing to do with it. So I don't want them to go home with that burden that, oh, I did something wrong and that's why my child is suffering. Because I think they suffer even more than the child. I think the children are comfortable.
So, as someone practicing pediatric surgery in the UAE with exposure to both Indian and the local patients here, what differences or challenges have you observed in pediatric surgical care, and how do you adapt your practice accordingly?
I think the only challenge that I have faced is language, because I'm still struggling to learn Arabic. I know shway Arabic, very little, but I feel like even Emirati patients and Arab patients, they're very tolerant of it. So we usually get a translator and they help in explaining. But one thing I found is, irrespective of which culture or ethnicity you come from, the parents are always equally scared. They're equally worried about their little child. And having a language barrier just makes it more difficult for them. So usually, even if they can speak in, little of English, I usually try to get a translator and I might ask it like about 10 times again and again, like, are you clear? Is there anything else? Is there any doubts? Do you want someone else to speak? Do you want me to speak to another family member who can, probably explain it more clearly? But I try to make sure that, I get them to be as calm as I want them to be.
Considering the evolving landscape of the pediatric care, what do you see as the biggest gaps or opportunities in the UAE or in the Middle East for pediatric surgery, and how do you envision your role or that of Medcare in helping address them?
Actually, in general, I feel UAE is really growing to become a very high level pediatric surgical center. Like, so initially, if we had to look at training programs and things like that, we had to go to Europe. I've seen it even in India and like maybe the top tier cities. That's where the training simulations, all that happen. But after moving here, I've realized actually they do quite a lot of that here now. There are a lot of, training programs in Abu Dhabi, in Dubai, in Sharjah. So I think they're gearing towards the right direction. I think whatever's the latest, I think they'll find a way to put it here.
So, do you have any message to the parents, like who are afraid and fear of bringing the child for pediatric surgery?
Yes, I
There are
think,
a lot of misconception because being a parents, yeah, they get afraid.
yeah, they get afraid. I think one of the most common misconceptions I've had, or the most common concern that I've seen in children who are brought to me for surgery, strangely, is anesthesia. The parents are less terrified of surgery, but they are more terrified of general anesthesia because for some reason it is like, every complication that has happened has been, blown up and blown out of proportion. And the parents are aware of that. So they think that happens with every case, but it's not true. Okay. When you have a good setup where you have competent and, a well running setup, setup which is already smoothly running, which is already dealt with newborn children. We are giving anesthesia to newborn children, to small children. So when they bring me their 6-year-old or 7-year-old, it it is something that I wish parents understood, that it's not that dangerous. And they sometimes it will be for a small thing, like a laceration. And in a 4-year-old, it's actually more traumatic to hold the child down and, force him to stay there, give him an injection, put sutures, rather than, that's more traumatic to him mentally. The easier or
Right.
better way for him would be just to take him under anesthesia, which will be perfectly safe, which is perfectly monitored, and do it, get him out of there, and he will never have a fear. See, children will probably outgrow that fear, but why add on that trauma? So,
Because next time they won't, get involved in such. They won't come to hospital.
yeah, they won't come to hospital. Yeah, and especially when they know they have done something wrong.
Right.
Like I have children who will, children have this very common habit of swallowing things or putting it in their nose and all that. They'll do that, and then they'll tell their parent and they'll say, I don't want to go to the hospital though. I don't want to go there. Or they might not tell you. You get it? Or they might not come. Why add the fear? It's an unnecessary fear, because general anesthesia, provided it is done in a very safe setting, is fairly safe for the child.
Right.
It's not always dangerous. Yeah, I think that is one of the most biggest misconception that people have.
Well, I think that is all. Thank you so much for speaking with us. Thank you for trying.
Thank you. Thank you so
Thank you.
much.